Thank you, Melissa. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
introducing yourself there. We are so happy to have Melissa on board. It has been over a year now, Melissa.
It has.
Oh, it feels
It
like
definitely has.
for forever. You just got right in there and picked up and just are soaring. So thank you for that. And thank you for taking on the retreat this year. Everybody's so good to see you. I'm so happy to see everybody here. And of course, it is important for us to make sure that we are understanding exactly the needs of our providers. And Melissa has been taking over this task and listening to your voices and trying to understand what is needed as we expand. We've done so much in the past 2 years. I always say that the pandemic became our best teacher. It really did, as far as how we expanded. It looks a little different. It might not be what, we're used to, but boy, it's working. It's working. And happily, we are going to be in person in October, our first one back in person, but we're doing that a little different too. So if I could take a little time just to give you almost like a year in review. I think it's important for you to sort of see the movement that we've had, the growth that we've had. Unite for Her is now at 21 employees. We're so grateful for that. And had a lot of growth during that pandemic. And we have been really looking to, when we did grow nationwide, we were looking to make sure we were prioritizing our women of color. We were prioritizing our Black community because of the health equity gaps that we saw in front of us, because of the 42%, risk of being metastatic, and really not risk, but the actual data is showing that our Black women end up dying 42% higher than our white women. When we had all of these numbers in front of us, we were compelled to make sure that when we did expand, that we went into communities that we knew we could get the pulse of that patient, as well as the Latina community, hence why we started Spanish-speaking Wellness Day, having Spanish-speaking providers, brought on a Spanish-speaking registered dietitian, really trying to make sure we embed ourselves in the community that we want to serve. We start looking like the community we want to serve. And we took an inward look, right? And making sure that we are doing everything that we can to do our part in the integrative care space. We have amazing providers. You guys have been with us and really helping us and teaching us. And we want you to continue to do that. We always listen to your voice as much as we listen to our women and men's voice. I know I've been speaking on a couple panels lately, and they ask, what drives your goals and what drives your strategic plan? And our patients are front and center. Their voice is what drives us. We hear their voice, we listen to them, we ask them what they're looking for. We can't build a program without them. And I want to say we can't build a program without you. We don't want to build it and have everybody come to it and think this is what we need. We want to make sure we're hearing from the community and from you to make sure we're meeting our women where they are, and our men. So a little bit of stats just to give you some idea of our growth last year. I don't know if you follow us on Facebook, or if you get on our website. You might have seen that we have a new look on our website. We did a new national new design. So we were excited about that. Corey Ann did a fabulous job. And we served 4,378 women and men last year. To give you a little perspective, the year before, 2,100. So we doubled. And when we doubled, we did that in a way that we knew we could make sure that we could serve them, because as you know, our metastatic community, we serve for life. And our newly diagnosed early breast cancer community, we serve for a full year. So when we leaned into hitting those goals, we actually surpassed them. But we did have the funding. We were able to get some funding that allows us to go into certain communities, allows us to focus on certain types of breast cancer, allows us to focus on certain types of breast cancer in a certain community. So we have a lot of these restricted grants that allowed us to get into the community across the nation. Next year, our budget and our strategy is going to be around 5,010 women. Taking a jump, not doubling, of course, we cannot keep up with that. There is no way. I had to make sure that our staff was building, right, and making sure they're confident in their infrastructure, but the same with our providers, making sure that they're confident as well. Nutrition has soared as a very much number one modality treatment service that people have been choosing. And it makes sense. And Melissa will go through that a little bit with you as well. But because we have been going into under-supported communities, underserved communities, food has been an issue. Food has been an issue. So we expanded on that. We have a national distributor of our 6 weeks of fresh vegetables distributed to the home. We do the grocery gift card. We do some basket meal delivery, just again, trying to listen to our patients to see what they need. And does that help them? Of course, they engage with us when they do nutrition. And that's when we start planting the seed to try other treatments, to try other modalities. So it has been this wonderful win-win instead of, a passport that's sitting there not getting used, where we can get them to start using with the food delivered. Everybody wants food delivered, right? Food is so much joy, getting on a cooking class, but we can start talking to them about the other modalities as well and how they can reduce stress and help you with pain management and just make sure that we are, again, meeting them where they are. But sometimes it takes a little nudge, right? Our staff, as we're growing, I talked a little bit about the staff growing. We had to go up to 4 registered dietitians. Many of you are with us when we had 1. Many of you were with us when we just had Katie. Remember Katie, and then Aaron took over, and now we have 4. That has been such a good growth for us, making sure that we are connecting and engaging with those women and men. We also are hiring, just so you know, a couple positions, but one of them that's in this wellness program outreach is a wellness program liaison. The reason why we are hiring that position is to give the ladies a little bit of a nudge to use their passport, to let them understand that we have this whole speaker education series. That's an extension of the passport. It might be nice, Melissa, if you did go over that passport. I don't know if that's a part of your agenda today, but we really have added so much. Like, we kept the passport that tried and true, and then added, because of the virtual type of connection and the online community, being the speaker series, Ask the Experts, and we have something called a virtual hangout. You'll hear Melissa talk a little bit about that more, but again, listening to our task force, we have a women of color task force that we've been, I guess it's been in place for maybe 3 years now, added some physicians last year, and the physicians were telling us, sometimes Reiki, massage, yoga, they feel like it's not for them. How can we educate more to make sure that they are understanding it? It actually helps with pain management. It helps with emotional distress. And just having that as an easy headline might bring them in a little bit quicker. So we started doing our Reiki and our yoga. Melissa will talk about that at our virtual hangouts, free, like, bringing in an instructor and not using your passport, just to get that education out. So know that we are leaning in to try and make sure that is getting more front and center, the education behind these complementary care treatments, but also hiring a wellness program liaison to have conversations, to have meaningful conversations, to listen to them, to actually call and ask them, hey, are you using your passport? It's really important, right, that we are not only getting the women into our program, but getting them to understand how to engage in the wellness passport program, whether it's local, Philadelphia, PA, New Jersey, Delaware, or across the nation, where we are now in every state, or in every state. When we look at how many different types of treatments we have distributed throughout the year, that's always a good fun stat for me to share. And let me grab that, because I think we are like up to about 13,000 different treatments that we ended up distributing this year. Oh, sorry, 17,000. So we ended up delivering 17,863 one-on-one private integrative therapy sessions, both virtual or in person. We also, we don't track always all the education series. So it doesn't even include that. It doesn't include the community that logs on and listens to our speaker series, right? Or logs on and watches the Ask the Experts, or logs onto our library and goes through that incredible Her Library and picks topics that are meaningful to them. So we'll get there. We're building that and tracking that. Of course, there's analytics behind it. But, we just don't quite know if they're in our program presently, if they're metastatic, or if they actually have been an alumni of ours and then bringing it in. All of these, growth spurts, I'll call them, of Unite for Her, is helping us serve in a more comprehensive way. in a comprehensive way and meeting them where they are. And that's actually, Cal is going to be talking about that today. You know, am I meeting our providers where they are? So important, right? So important for that. So with that being said, Melissa is going to go through a whole agenda. She's going to, please give us questions, do it in the chat. I'm going to hang on for a little bit. Please give us questions that are burning, maybe, or interest, you know, something that's interesting that you would like us to address. You know, we're there for you. We are so, you know, we are so here as far as just making sure timely in answering your questions, keeping you up to date on how we're growing, and making sure that you're understanding the path that we're on, because you, our providers, represent the community. You are the face of Unite for Her once they get past the virtual conference and they start using that passport. And we want to make sure we keep you as up to date as possible, right? And that you're not feeling like you're unsure of the growth and the expansion that Unite for Her has had. So now we're going to get into our agenda. And of course, I have the honor, and Melissa, if you want to put Cal up, to introduce Cal. Cal Cates is an award-winning writer. If you're not sure about her whole background, I love going through this bio on you, Cal. Published researcher, international speaker, and the founder of the executive director of Healwell, founder and executive director, a nonprofit whose mission is to touch, teach, and advocate for a broader role for massage therapists in serious illness care. Cal is an inspiration change facilitator. They have trained thousands of healthcare providers in skills of resilience and self-awareness and communication and forgiveness. They have dedicated their career to advocacy in healthcare, massage therapy as social justice, and to revolutionize education for healthcare providers. Cal has trained with Joan Halifax, Ram Das, and Frank Ostaleski. Did I say that one right, Cal?
Close enough.
Oh, thank you. Oh man, not my strength. And other leaders in the field of complementary care, and has created curriculum and written for trade journals on topics ranging from end-of-life care to interdisciplinary education to racism and to endless ways that humans make it hard to live in a successful equity, harmony community, right? So Cal, without further ado, I'm going to let you come front and center. I have to say, every time I hear you speak, I am always better for it. So thank you for coming here today. You mean a lot to our community. You mean so much to our community and have trained us and taught us. And please keep teaching us. That's all I want to say. And opening that up to all of you here today. Please keep teaching us, because we are a sponge and we want to hear from you. All right, take the floor.
Thank you. I'm just so honored that you all don't appear to be sick of me quite yet, or at least the bosses of Unite for Her are not sick of me.
No.
I am maybe 4 days out from finally testing negative from COVID. And so I'm doing some coughing, but I'm gonna do my best to make it through. And I don't recommend getting COVID. So just, it's like 0 stars, do not recommend. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about something that we don't usually talk about. And I think particularly the types of providers who are in attendance today and support Unite for Her, even more so, don't talk about it. So we're gonna talk about it. And we'll, I hopefully have left room for some Q&A as we go along. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Okay, got boxes popping up. As a co-host, I'm like getting these, admit this person, and I don't think you want to give me that kind of power. So
I'll take care of that. You just
okay.
do.
So we're going to talk about getting closer. And, you know as providers, we love to talk about meeting our clients where they are. And it's one of those phrases that is almost meaningless at this point, because we don't really know what that means, or we sort of, what we're saying when we say I meet my clients where they are is that I'm trying to come with no agenda and that I'm available for whatever might come up. And I think when we talk about sex and intimacy, which is what we're going to talk about today, it feels like a topic that won't come up unless I make myself available for it. And that it is problems in the area of intimacy and sexual health are rampant in folks who have been diagnosed and are being treated for cancer. And if our job as integrative providers is to improve quality of life, being sensitive to the prevalence of these challenges, I think, is really important. So I want to encourage you to avoid side chatting as we go along. When a topic becomes exciting for people, I think they want to like get in the chat and say, oh, read this book, watch this documentary, etc. And then we miss our sort of group hearing the same thing and then having the opportunity to have that meaningful Q&A later. So I will ask you to use the chat a little bit because I want to know what you're thinking about this topic. But if you're willing to go along with me on just being with me in this conversation and resisting that temptation to go to the chat, I would be grateful. So sex, intimacy, and change, what we're going to talk about today. And I am really curious about what comes to mind. Everything is available. Everything's on the table. When you hear sex, what comes to mind? You can talk about what you're feeling in your body. You can talk about, what are my stories about it? What other words do I wish you were using instead? Oh, that's so instructive. Usually the chat blows up. So, right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, feel free to say something in the chat. Yes, for sure.
I wasn't sure if we can, because Cal, you just said not use the chat. Don't
No
use
side chat.
No side chat.
chats.
Okay, I will start blowing up the chat then.
Okay, gender, intimate relationships, touch. Sex is the 4-letter year word we don't use. Pleasure.
I would think post-treatment fear.
Fear, okay. Loaded. Yep, partners expecting. Vulnerability. Media, movies, pressure to perform. Got a couple private chats. Yeah, will I ever enjoy it again? Takes a lot of energy. Yeah, letting your guard down. Okay, so what about intimacy? And I noticed that some of you sort of feel like sex and intimacy are synonyms. And I think that I'm glad for those people because I don't think that's true for everyone, but it's important to know that overlap. So yeah, am I desirable? Comfort level in my body, body image. Sense of closeness. Yeah. Special connection, maybe with one person. Courage. Feeling understood. Vulnerability. Yeah, that it goes beyond sex. Absolutely. Yeah, adjusting to what your body is now affected by cancer and cancer treatment before, maybe sharing it with another person. Yeah, feeling overtouched after treatment or through treatment. Yeah, so let's talk about change. And when you hear the word change, and not even just in relation to your clients or your patients or cancer or even sex and intimacy, just change, period. Love it, hate it. What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? Excitement and fear. Where am I now? Possibility. Too many, too fast. It's the only constant. Usually resistant, but I've done it enough, right? Yeah, new changes. uncertain, not sure I like it. Yeah, so change inspires a lot of questions and really brings up our pervasive desire for things to be the same, or at least to know where I'm going. And we don't really ever know, right? Exactly where we're going. We know where we think we want to go. We know where, if I do this, I think I will go here. And when we're curious about it, we notice that there's not always that if this then relationship. What kind of change? One that I choose or one that's forced upon me, right? Fair question. Yeah. And how does perspective fit into change? My wife forces me into change all the time, and I'm like, ah, shit, I wouldn't do this, but thanks. I needed to do that. That was, yeah. Yeah, adapt or expect to be frustrated. So these three little words, right, that we're looking at here, really show us that we are made of stories. That is the thing actually that differentiates us from other mammals and other living creatures, is that we spend most of our time explaining our world to ourselves and others through stories. And I would argue that most of those stories are inaccurate on some level. We explain through stories that allow us to cope, right? And that sort of, there's a book by Pema Chodron where she talks about how what we do is we try to create a story that makes us come out looking good, whatever that might mean. And that's not always the truth. And it's one of the many ways that we harm ourselves by accident. But as providers, as we think about this topic of sex and intimacy, I think one of the most potentially damaging stories we tell is that this is out of my scope. I don't talk about it because it's not my business. And I think the problem with that story is that what we think we're saying, if we welcome these topics into our scope, is that I can fix them, or that I am prepared to talk through them with a client or a patient. And I want to invite us to consider that our scope is human experience, is normalizing and receiving what is happening for the people that we're caring for. It doesn't always mean that we have the specific skills to change that thing or make it less in a sort of way that I go, oh, as a massage therapist, it's my job to address sexual dysfunction. It is and it isn't. Or as an acupuncturist, this is how I perceive these things. So I want to talk a little bit about how pervasive sexual dysfunction, which is a broad category of alteration to previous experience of sexual health or sexual interaction, and to really stay mindful of the overlap between sex and intimacy. And that, statistics suggest that about 2% of people are what we would call asexual, where what we think of as sort of sexual intercourse is not something that is important to them physically or mentally, that actually engaging in sexual acts with another person is not key for their overall health and well-being. But intimacy is a thing that is important for humans and for cats, as it turns out. So you can see that this is far from an exhaustive list of the places where sex and intimacy overlap. And when you all were throwing in the chat, these things all came up, right? So I want to just point to closeness. It's what we do as providers, whether we're a physician, an acupuncturist, a registered dietitian. When we're interacting with people, we are hopefully developing a strong therapeutic relationship, which involves closeness. If we're talking about our role as providers with intimacy and sex, desirability obviously takes on a little bit of a different definition, but what we're talking about is the closeness that comes with your clients and patients feeling like you're so glad they are here. You are enjoying this relationship and you find them worthy of care, of love, of sort of showing up to this. Creating a sense of safety where anything can be shared, and that you're clear in your boundaries, which is another rabbit hole that we don't have time to go down today, but that you're clear that I can hear you say something about your sexual health or about your sexual dissatisfaction and understand, and you can understand as the client or patient that you're not asking me to fix that. You are just sharing that information and I am receiving it, noting my baggage about this isn't in my scope, or I'm uncomfortable about sex, about intimacy, and being able to think through that and be aware and self-aware. Making that connection, sex and intimacy, again, total overlap, and that mental health, that these intimacy and sex, which overlap and are separate, are essential to the mental and emotional health of human beings. So when folks are coming to us, they're not necessarily thinking that, oh, this other thing that is having a huge impact on my quality of life is fair game for discussion and complaining for like, this is a thing that's happening for me and I wish it wasn't. There's been a good bit of study and research and quantitative and qualitative data collected about this experience. And breast cancer patients who are sexually active and have access to a partner may be in particular need of sexual help, but they lack the confidence to do this with a healthcare provider. And researchers have measured both sides of this equation, and we're going to talk a little bit more here in the next few slides about what that data bears out. But the sexual health information is a thing that we can make available regardless of our discipline. We can have brochures, we can have worksheets, we can have a question on our intake form that asks people to sort of rate their satisfaction with their sexual health, or to indicate if they've experienced a change in that since cancer diagnosis. And that may inspire them to be like, why do you want to know about that? And then you can speak openly about understanding how important that is to quality of life. And that in my understanding as a provider of what you're experiencing as a person going through cancer treatment, this is useful information. And I can be on the lookout for resources so that you feel more supported in addressing this thing that most people don't feel comfortable addressing, despite the fact that they're experiencing it. So 66% of women with cancer experience some degree of sexual dysfunction. And this is people who are willing to report this on a survey or in a study, right? So like any self-report statistic, we can probably add a couple percentage points to how prevalent this is. And then of course, as with all adverse effects, we see an increased incidence in Black women, which is another rabbit hole. We don't have time to go down, but it does play into bias and racism and just how we communicate as a society and as people who have been taught to observe race and notice it. And then women, younger women with breast cancer, as you can see, a much higher percentage of that. And I think, again, we see the number actually come out in the data because these women are ostensibly having an active sex life before cancer, and it is part of their marriage, their relationship, and they're really noticing that like this is a problem. This is really important, that total mastectomy and treatment for endocrine cancers are what they call independent risk factors. So all other things being equal or even sort of the best, a supportive partner, access to good medical care, financial security, all of these other things. If you have all those things in place, even if you have all those things in place, having a double mastectomy or being treated for an endocrine cancer can and is likely to result in some level of sexual dysfunction. And part of what we're looking at here is that cancer treatment, depending on the type of treatment a person experiences, causes physical changes, dryness and shortening of the vagina, pain upon intercourse, decreased libido, but then also changes in body image and changes in your relationship with the person with whom you are in a sexual relationship. So there's psychosocial and emotional aspects as well as physiological aspects. And there are people in the cancer care world who are working really hard to address these things, and they can be addressed. A lot of the primary things that interrupt and upset a person's sexual health can be addressed. But if you don't know where to go, and then, you can see at the bottom here in a study of 45 women, 3 of 45 treating oncologists even mentioned it. And it doesn't even get into the detail of like, so then what happened? So the provider says, how's your sexual health, or however they decide to phrase that question. And does the patient just say, fine, and like, please, can I leave? Or does the patient say, well, now that you asked, blah, blah, blah. And then the provider's like, oh God, I want to leave. Or are these really engaged conversations where providers are like, okay, so how do we problem solve this? And I want to be a part of improving your quality of life and returning sexual health and sexual function to your experience. And I think that we see already, even with things like peripheral neuropathy and numbness and chemo brain, we see providers sort of saying, well, you're alive. Sorry, that's happening for you. I don't know what to do. So when we add the baggage of sex and intimacy to this dynamic, you can see why providers are sort of moving away from this. And I think it mirrors the data that we see mirrors the providers' inability / unwillingness to talk about end of life issues as well. These are things that are just not integrated into our education as providers. So we don't have the communication skills, and we haven't been invited to do the inner work to become more aware of our own baggage and resistance and biases around these topics that our culture has made kind of fraught. A couple of friends of ours here, Healwell, my organization, our friends at MedStar Washington Hospital Center did this study with hospitalized palliative care patients, looking at how does being ill and having a progressive illness affect a person's intimacy experience and sexual health. And you can see that most of the patients want to talk about this, but they don't feel comfortable talking about it with providers, and that medical teams sort of across the board, and the primary authors on this study are social workers. You would think if anybody's talking about it, it would be social workers, right? But even among sort of chaplains and talk therapists, people who are sort of there to address the psychosocial aspects of a patient's experience, this is not a topic area where they feel like they really have the skills to invite patients to talk about it. So we have to understand that intimacy and sex are essential to mental health and spiritual health, personal health. And there's a study that at first blush, you might think, well, this is about the pandemic and isolation during the pandemic. But I'm sure that you had plenty of your patients and clients say to you, like, I'm overhearing about people complaining about masking and not being able to leave the house. Like, my cancer has made me be on isolation for a long time. And I think that, or at least that I'm used to this idea that, like, today I'm too sick or my counts are too low to leave the house, or like, I always wear a mask. So when we look at how the isolation of the pandemic affected people, I think that data is really useful in looking at sexual activity having a protective effect on anxiety and mood disorders. And that when people become isolated and when they feel like they can't do what they used to do, sex just gets thrown in the bucket with that. And, the experience of the other person in the relationship is also something that just isn't considered. And certainly as nutritionists, dietitians, massage therapists, acupuncturists, yoga therapists, like, we can't solve that. But I think most patients don't even know that there are providers who that's what they do. They invite you and maybe your partner into a conversation, a therapeutic conversation about, wow, we're both feeling a sense of loss around this, or feeling a sense of power dynamic shift, or lack of wanting to be vulnerable or ability to be vulnerable. Like, how do we address these things that feel unaddressable? And that as providers who can't specifically address that, although there are certainly, within your scope and your discipline, there are places where probably you can, provide an intervention that will support a person in feeling more comfortable in a sexual relationship, but that you can have those referrals available, and you can have information available in your treatment space that says, this is a topic that I'm open to hearing about and that I'm open to supporting you with. So regardless of our discipline, as providers, we can listen and normalize our patients' and clients' concerns. We can be a person who, when the client comes in and says, you're the only person who touches me sweetly, or something like that, that we can just hear that and appreciate them sharing that, and not be like, oh gosh, did we just cross a line? No, we didn't cross a line. Like, people actually come to us for intimate connection. I doubt most people would sort of check that box if you gave them a survey about why they're seeking out our services, but on some basic level, and that's cultural baggage that makes people not like, they don't want to say, oh, this is the thing that I'm coming for, because intimacy, I think somebody talked in the chat about pleasure. You want to talk about a word we're not allowed to use in Western culture. Pleasure is dirty, right? Pleasure's for people who are, have enough free time on their hands to enjoy a thing. And so normalizing and making space for these really nuanced parts of the human experience, that alone can be so therapeutic for a person, for them to understand that they're not alone and that this is an okay thing to talk about. Your clients and patients talk with you regularly about the kind of response they get from their other providers about all sorts of things. And I'm sure many of you have had the experience of sort of inviting your client to consider that maybe they should seek out another provider, or that what they're sharing is very normal and is a thing you should be allowed and you deserve to have heard by your healthcare provider. And if they're not willing to hear you, it might be time to do some shopping. Encourage them to seek support and to understand some of we're going to talk a little bit about resources in a minute that are out there, but that there are groups, online, live groups, Living Beyond Breast Cancer, and a variety of cancer support organizations are really taking this topic head on and providing resources for folks so that they can feel less alone and so they can ask these kinds of questions. And then inviting folks to seek out sensitive providers. And that means you may be doing a little bit of homework around who are the providers in my community that are sensitive to these topics, or who are just available for whatever my client or patient might bring up. And that we can ask, we can make this a thing that is okay to talk about. And we can either ask with our faces, or we can make it clear that we're open to it by having brochures, having resources. If you have an email list, or however you communicate with your clients, there are lots of ways that we can suggest and invite this as a topic that we want to be supportive of, helping them get this quality of life back that they have maybe lost. So I can't teach you guys how to learn like motivational interviewing in 20 minutes. So we're not going to try, yay. But I think there are some really important aspects of this type of talk therapy called motivational interviewing that we can steal and sort of consider as a way to engage with our clients. And that part of the underlying thing here is that in a lot of ways, people seek out whatever service we're offering because they want something to be different. They want less pain. They want to be more relaxed. They want to escape the people who live at their house. Like, there are lots of things that inspire people to come see us. And we can really find ourselves accidentally in a place of assuming that they want change or what they want changed. And motivational interviewing is a way of, it's a type of curiosity, I feel like. And it is about eliciting from the person you're working with places where they would like to have change take place, and to invite them really to answer their own questions, and for you to be accepting and compassionate of whatever they might share, so that they can begin to feel safe to wonder if things could change, and that your relationship with them becomes a place where they can sort of try things out, and where they can say like, God, my husband did this again, or, I tried this thing and it didn't work, and, and like that you can begin to wonder aloud with them. I call it, in my brain, I think about it as walking and wondering. Like, we're walking along with our clients or patients and just wondering what might be useful, what we're dissatisfied with that we feel like changing. And I think this is the real trick, is that with motivational interviewing, part of what you're doing is trying to see if there is ambivalence. And I think that self-awareness is a huge piece of this, because our clients and patients tell us things that we think, God, there's no way I could tolerate that. Like, why do you put up with that? In your mind, you're thinking, oh, of course I would want to change this. But as we just explored when we threw our words in the chat about change is great. But it's great as a thing that happened. right? It's not a thing I want to go through right now. It's the thing that I want to be grateful that I went through, and that now I'm experiencing some imagined sense of certainty that will maintain until another change comes along. So it's about starting to notice the way that we talk with the folks we serve. And it's about this balance of guiding, following, directing. And it really is, it's called interviewing because it really is questions. And it's noticing that a lot of times the way we ask a question is leading and or judging. One of the reasons I'm no longer with my ex-wife is because she would say, "Why would you do it like that?" Which you might as well just say, "Why are you so stupid?" And we don't notice that this is a harmful way to ask a question. And so can we say, like, so how did it make you feel when? Or, does that happen a lot? And that allows the person to go, does that happen a lot? I don't know. And maybe they process it right in front of you, or maybe on their way home, or maybe the next week, they're like, "Oh, I remember when my acupuncturist asked me about, I've never asked myself that. Like I am kind of frustrated with this, or like I have bigger fish to fry. And so I'm not going to worry about this right now." But it's really about empowering people to change things they want to change. And so being respectful and curious while respecting autonomy and really facilitating a natural process of change, that just by asking a person to think about the cause and effect, or about how a thing is impacting them, invites them into a place of ambivalence, which is essential to the cycle of change. You have to wonder if it could be different before you will be successful in change. So I feel like the biggest task for us is to notice, is this mine or is this my client's? Is the client sharing this in a way that is making it clear to me that it would be valuable for me to ask some more questions, to lead them to a place where they're like, yeah, I guess I don't have to put up with that. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. And then maybe a few weeks from them, they ask you for a referral, or, they just keep sharing information that you're able to receive and bring greater curiosity to. Because we all know, somebody, again, in the chat, guys, like totally hit on the head. Is it change I wanted or change that was forced on me? And we know that when you force change on people, they just bounce right back. So it's really, it never goes at the pace we want it to go at, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that change isn't happening. So really being able to invite our clients to consider their own dissatisfaction and to make space for that, whatever places that might live. So let's talk about like some resources, and then we'll chat about how and if this has come up for all of you. Living Beyond Breast Cancer has an incredible bunch of resources available. They have interviews with physicians who do this work and who invite other physicians to do it, but they also have interviews with patients who are willing to talk about how cancer treatment has affected their sexual lives and kind of how they've reframed intimacy and sex. And, again, in the chat, somebody indicated like you can have sex with your partner and engage in sexual activity, but that there are also all kinds of ways that you can sort of have sex with your partner without having sex with your partner, right? Like just by cuddling or snuggling or kissing, or there are lots of ways that we can be intimate, that particularly in the things I read about the younger patients, because we tend to have a stronger sex drive when we're younger, sex was a bigger part of the relationship for a lot of these women that were interviewed. And they would say, like, it wasn't until I either had pain upon intercourse or my libido sort of decreased that my partner and I had to think about other ways to show that we were desirable to each other and that we were supportive, and that the refuge that I had always found in sexual intercourse was something I had to find in a different way, or that we still have sex and I've, used these various tools to improve my experience and like where there was pain, adapting, and but also that now there's this whole other way of being together that we were able, through therapy, through just talking to each other. I mean, it all depends on the relationship, obviously, with your partner. And as a single person, what does that look like? It's not that you're a non-sexual being if you don't have a regular partner. So how do we talk about that, and what kind of support is available? So Living Beyond Breast Cancer has lots of resources, these videos, these interviews. They have a worksheet about speaking to your doctor about sex. Maybe that's something that you want to make available in your practice. And it's just questions that you can ask. And there's a great, I don't remember, I think it's actually this woman here, Anna, in this video, who talks about that the first time she tried to introduce this topic with her provider, she did it wrong. She called it a doorknob conversation. So she had her appointment and they did all the things that you usually do. And then, like, as she was on her way out the door, she was like, oh, by the way, I'm having these issues with sexual dysfunction. And she's like, it was just a train wreck. Like, the provider wasn't prepared to answer the questions. I didn't really want to stay for the conversation. Like, so this worksheet, I think, it just asks some useful questions and kind of, it demystifies why this is important. It normalizes and makes it really clear that you deserve to have someone here and partner with you in solving these problems. And certainly one of those people could be your primary healthcare provider. So definitely check those out. And you'll see there's tons of other links in there about how to find support in your peer group, how to talk to your partner. So yeah, Living Beyond Breast Cancer is actively producing. I mean, you can see, like, February of this year, and last month they dedicated a whole bunch of stuff in their newsletter to this particular topic. So there are resources out there for you and for the folks you work with. ISWISH is also a really great organization for providers, for like physicians, nurses, PTs, OTs. Certainly as another type of provider, you could join. I joined a couple of years ago, and there were rabbit holes that I didn't understand. So I stopped being a member myself, because I'm like, this really is for like OBGYNs and people who are like actively doing research in this area. But they do have an app now as well that there is some overlap for patients and people experiencing this, in addition to support, also being able to indicate interest in participating in this kind of research and kind of finding the most credible studies and papers, and kind of just getting a sense of like, where is this topic broadly in healthcare and how people are looking at it. So hop on their site and see what you think. Depends on your level of nerdiness, I think, how fun that will be. But there are a lot of really great resources. And it's something you could recommend to oncology providers, to OBGYNs, to folks that you already know and trust who are providers in those disciplines. So I also wanted to let you all know, if you don't know already, that my organization, Healwell, is actually hosting a symposium next Saturday. It's virtual, so you can, if you can't be there live, you can watch the sessions later. One of the study authors from one of the papers I mentioned earlier is actually our keynote speaker, talking about addressing this topic with palliative care patients and older patients. But we also have a really incredible lineup of speakers just talking about how our baggage around sex and intimacy prevents us from being useful to the folks we serve in this area, but also looking at studies. And we've got somebody talking about disability and sex, talking about LGBTQ, talking about AIDS, talking about pregnancy and sex, all of these places where we don't really think about sex and or intimacy, and where as healthcare providers, we can really do a much better job in supporting the folks that we work with here. It does offer 7.5 CEs for all of those provider categories that you see on the right. Massage therapists, I'm sorry to tell you that our boards who recognize these things don't think this is important for you to know. So you won't get CEs, but we will give you a form letter that you can send to the National Certification Board saying, this thing was amazing, and I would like 7.5 CEs, please. As with all of our programs, we have equity pricing, so you can see the various levels of pricing to be able to attend the event. And as always, if even the equity pricing level will prevent you from attending and you want to attend, just reach out to us and we will figure it out. And then at the risk of making the end of this talk a Healwell infomercial, I also want to invite you all to consider joining us in the Healwell online interdisciplinary community. It is kind of our, I don't even want to call it our private Facebook, because Facebook, just there's talk about baggage, but it is an online place for thoughtful providers to engage in thoughtful conversation about all kinds of topics. So we always have a monthly theme. This month in September is actually intimacy and healthcare. So we have curated articles, webinars, documentaries, things to kind of really talk about that, but also opportunities to share with each other about how this shows up. We just had one of the folks in our community say that she she's been really nervous about this topic. She had a client come who I think she said she had like a glute injury, and using some of the tools that she learned in the community and from one of our recent podcasts, she asked her client in a sensitive way, like basically, how did this happen? And the client told her that it happened during sex. And she's like, and everything you said would happen happened. Like, she was like, oh my God, it was so crazy and blah, blah, blah. But I'm really nervous because it's a new relationship. And so all of these things that were sort of worrying this client were now fair game. And this therapist said that she just really felt prepared to receive that information and to just now be able to check in with this person the next time she comes in about this thing that she was sort of trying to make up a story about how she hurt her glute. And this therapist could be helpful to her, but it just strengthened their therapeutic relationship that the client was able to share that. So we have weekly live office hours, so you can hop on and chat with people about whatever's going on for you at that time. Sometimes we have guest speakers, but often it's just providers hopping on there to chat about whatever. Book club, Saturday night cinema. We're watching the documentary Disclosure tonight and hopping on and talking about trans health and gender identity and all that kind of stuff. We have a private hospital-based massage group within there. Social justice and healthcare. We have an unpopular opinions thing this week. We're sharing about opinions we hold that we can't prove. And the rules of the game are that you share this opinion and the other people in the group can only ask you questions about that opinion. So it's not a chance for you to bounce in with your opinions. It's like, okay, so tell me how this is a thing. And we have all of these things in place in the community to teach us how to be more thoughtful humans, more thoughtful providers, how to really support each other in this really complicated experience of being a person. So some people are in there linking and posting and sharing and commenting. Lots of people are in there as what we call lurkers. They just read the articles and maybe like heart something or whatever, but you would never know they were there. And then we have people who are just all over everything that's available. But it's a great place to ask your questions that you think are stupid and to not be pounced upon and to be invited by other providers to really talk about how hard it is to be a person taking care of persons. So caring, it's always in your scope. You just got to think about how you're doing it and be thoughtful. Please always feel free to reach out to me, text me, email me, whatever. Check out Healwell on Instagram, Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're in all the social places. And let's just, like normalize how hard this is and be good to each other.
Well, that was wonderful. Like this is only my third time ever hearing Cal present, and every time I take away. And so I have all my notes here that I've jotted down, and I'm not even a provider. So I appreciate this. Excellent presentation. That you have some comments in the chat, but I'd love to see if anyone has any questions for Cal about this presentation, because it was wonderful. So feel free to either put in the chat or come off mute, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Hi, Cal. This is Janice from Colorado.
Hello.
And I've been a social worker in oncology for many, many years. And when I bring this up with some participants, they are very, very uncomfortable and sometimes have presumed that it was inappropriate. And I'm wondering how you would recommend providers who are well-intentioned address that discomfort.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't save all the starfish. I think this is maybe one of the hardest things, is when you can see at least part of what is causing suffering for a person and you feel like you can provide some resources to lessen that suffering, and they're not open to seeing that this is part of their suffering. So I think it's really a fine balance of finding that ambivalence. And I think when you have that cross-armed rejection of even the topic, you're like, okay, so we're not at ambivalence yet. But can I, here's a brochure, here's a whatever, go think about it on your own time. And not everybody will show up for this conversation. So I think sometimes it really is a matter of being like, oh man, this person would feel so much better if we could have this conversation, and I can only do so much. I don't know if that gets at what you're talking about.
Do you find that there are more receptive ways that a provider could present the topic or the question as far as how it's actually initiated? And perhaps that might make a difference in how receptive people are.
Definitely. I mean, I think, we are frustrated in an ongoing way as an organization that we get a lot of our CEs through massage therapy, and the unwillingness of the massage profession, and I don't know if this is true in other disciplines, but to recognize communication as a key skill that we aren't good at as humans and as providers needs to change. And that, I think this is one of the reasons why I gravitate so much to motivational interviewing, is that it's all about exactly this question of like, how do I pitch this in a way that doesn't sound like, what your problem is? And of course, we would never say that, right? But our bodies might be saying it, and the way that we phrase it might really be unintentionally judging. So I think learning from social work, nurse practitioners, I think palliative care does a pretty good job of learning how to use words. But I think it's really about curiosity and just sort of saying what you're seeing. I think I love to listen to people share about what's happening for them and say, so I noticed when you said blah, blah, your face did this, or you chose this word, and I'm curious about what this word means to you. And that it just invites them to think more about a thing instead of like saying like, I noticed you said shut down. When I think of shut down, I think of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it doesn't matter what you think it means. They chose that phrase. So what does it mean to them? And how does it feel to them? And it's sometimes it clicks for people right away. And other times they're like, oh, this, I'm not into the feeling the feels. Could we go to the thing that doesn't involve the feeling? But I do think that the way we phrase and the way we sort of, you're inviting people into their own process, which seems silly, but people aren't in their own process. They're trying to get away from the things that are unpleasant. So yeah, I think language is huge. And open-ended questions, I think generally speaking, I find very useful, like sort of, how do you feel about that? Tell me more about that. Say more, like they aren't even questions, they're just invitations. That's sort of, I guess, as far down the road of like scripting as I feel comfortable getting. But I think it really is about making it clear to this person that this is not a transactional relationship. I'm not trying to get information so I can use it. I'm inviting you to think in front of me and to feel in front of me in a way that probably will percolate beyond this specific interaction and invite you into a space of ambivalence.
Thank you.
Cal, there is another in the chat. It says, I think sometimes buried within the experience of sexual health for a client is sexual trauma.
Yeah, I might even just say kind of always, because our experience as sexual beings in this culture is traumatic. So even if you haven't experienced incest, rape, sexual assault, the things that our culture has decided qualify as traumatic, the experience of growing into your sexuality and how we're taught to understand concepts like pleasure and embodiment is traumatic. It's violent. We're not set up for success. So I think, this is another area where we have to stop learning techniques and learn trauma-informed care. And I feel like the best trauma-informed care education that I've received really moves away from this hierarchy of trauma and really talks about how it's traumatic if I experienced it as traumatic. And something that I experience as traumatic may be totally commonplace for you, and you have different coping skills or your perspective on it is different. So being aware that pretty much everybody who shows up on our table before cancer even has some trauma in their body, I think is huge. And then when you add the layer that Unite for Her serves women who are disproportionately represented in rape, incest, all of these sexual violence crimes. I think that's an indispensable skill, is being aware that people have experiences of trauma and understanding the effect of trauma in the body.
Any additional questions? Comments?
I have a comment. It's not a question, but just this whole talk. I have someone who I've worked with when I started doing oncology massage, and I still work with her. It's been about 14 years, but I have an email I saved from her after her mastectomy, and she is single. She said she felt like a leper and she was trying to date, and just sort of being open to like just listening. But I feel like we have a safe space established, and you know, it is out of my scope, but I can listen and I can reflect to her, you know, how I see her physically, or with like her mental strength, just assets about her. So it just feels like I feel honored that she felt safe enough to share that. And yeah, so
Definitely. Well, I mean, that's all. That's huge, right? I mean, maybe you're the only person who can do that, or maybe you're a person, you know, in her life, and the value of that can't be overstated. So I feel like that's a huge benefit that we bring that sort of doesn't show up on the brochure of what, you know, in your case, massage therapy can offer. There's a book and a website and a whole ton of resources by Sonia Renee Taylor called The Body Is Not an Apology. And, you know, I feel like as we're talking about this, and as I was preparing, I was thinking of all the things I listen to and read that aren't about this, but that are about this. And I feel like just we have to do such a better job of being curious about the ways that we are imprisoned, for lack of a less diplomatic way to describe it. That culture has really done a number on all of us, whether it's about gender, sexuality, how healthy we deserve to be. There's just this whole like constant hustle for balance, whatever the heck that means. And I feel like the more we can learn about the things we don't even notice we believe, and that we don't even notice we're trying to uphold, the more compassionate we become with ourselves, the more compassionate we become with the people that we serve. So my negative experience with managing menopause with gynecologists helped me to realize how prevalent this issue of not being able to talk about normal sexual issues and changes with medical professionals. It has helped me adjust my awareness and openness. Yep. Sadly, that is how many of us recognize that there's a problem, is that we are actually victimized by something that we may even have been doing. Michelle.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure I have a question, but it's stirring up some of my own teaching, you know, and overlapping. So I'm just going to kind of talk and process a little bit here. So I'm a yoga therapist, and I've created a 6-week course that really uses the broader tools of yoga philosophy and Buddhism and meditation skills, not religion, but the, you know, the understanding of the mind. But one of the classes, one of the big topics is heart practices. It's really, you know, and I'm pulling from some Buddhism about understanding compassion and loving kindness and you know, equanimity. And I try to offer these teachings in a very physical, visceral, like understanding in your body. So, you know, a sense of understanding when the body is tight and closed and protective, you know, this feeling tone that is, you know, unpleasant, versus understanding this sense of warm and open and sense of connecting. And so how to sense all of your interactions, including even all of your different thoughts with yourself, are they triggering a sense of protection, contraction, tightness in your body? Or are they opening you? Are they expansive through your body? You want to connect with others. And so as you're talking about how we talk with our clients, I'm thinking about that of like, yes, meeting clients with that sense of curiosity. I'm noticing in my body that I'm open and I'm expansive. I'm wanting to see who this person is under the layers of our superficial, niceties. What's in their heart, what's happening, and how can I be just of service to them? And so I'm not sure what my question is, but this overlap, it seems like it's there. And I also in that particular class, I'm trying to offer tools around understanding joy, like understanding joy. And so I use that exercise. I do a visualization of, you're sitting with something very pleasant, like perhaps a litter of puppies. It notices your body open and expansive. Anyway, so through that, I then follow up with joy. So what are your what are your activities of joy? What brings you that open-hearted state? What, it's a walk in the woods, it's a hot bath, it's a chat with your friends, it's a hug, a long hug, oxytocin. What are these things? Make a list. These are your go-tos. And so I don't know how I will integrate what you're saying about the intimacy and your sexual health, but I see how important it is. I recognize how important it is for me. And even just having lived through a couple of chapters recently where like, oh, we're a little bit off here. I get it. I'm like, wow, this is so important. And I'm so glad that you've prompted this stirring up of like, wow, what am I gonna do with this? I don't know, but this is good.
Well, and I think that, I feel like people who do what we do, which I would say broadly is caring for and about other people. It's so easy to become a zealot. And I think that I often forget, and I often think that one of the reasons I'm married to the person I'm married to is so that I can remember that not everyone likes to be uncomfortable. Because I get very excited about being uncomfortable and not knowing what is happening and being like, oh my gosh, I totally assumed this thing that I didn't even notice I was assuming. And I think joy is a thing that I allow every day. And it's real uncomfortable for people. And, we don't have time to go down the rabbit hole of whiteness. But, when we look at, like, I teach a class called Dismantling Whiteness. And every time we do it, we sort of rework the agenda, because white people in particular, when we talk about liberation, they do not want to talk about it. They don't feel deserving of it. They feel like it's a waste of time. They feel all of these things. We feel all of these things that, like, you have to qualify for. If I have my list of what gives me joy, I'll do that after the laundry, right? I'll do that after I pay my taxes. And so this is why I keep pointing away from sort of discipline specific experiences and training, because I think what the value we bring is like 80% not about our needles or our mats or our hands or our techniques. It's about understanding how hard it is to be a person and having an ever expanding compassion for however it's hard for you, and for compassion for myself about how hard it is for me to not say, you know what I did and it totally worked, right? Because I just want you to not suffer. And if what I did will help you not suffer, then great. But when a therapist says to me, will you just take a deep breath for me? Boom, I'm done. Nope. I don't breathe for anybody but me. Don't ask me to take a deep breath for you. That's not how this works. And so I think just getting better at noticing our desire to end others' suffering and how sometimes that can bring suffering, and just being patient with how hard it is to allow joy, how hard it is to be curious, to just allow, and to notice the ways that you've been harming yourself. Because that's part of what happens, I think, when you say like, oh yeah, I really do love baking cookies. Why don't I do that? Oh, like, you're not saying, boy, I've abandoned myself and now I have to process this grief, but that's what's happening, right? So how can we get better at learning those things about ourselves so that that awareness comes into the way we engage with the people we're serving? I don't know, but that's really important to do, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. I just sitting back and then listening and going through all of this, it makes me want to say thank you to you all again. Just, the program is not nearly over, but I'm just saying for what you do for our community at Unite for Her is so special and so supportive. And, like, again, I think a lot of times, sometimes we just take things for granted, and we need talks like this to just make us realize, Michelle, as you were just speaking and trying to put things into word, I'm like, yeah, you want to bring the joy out in people. And Cal, you just said that we are people who like to help people, and that's what we all are here for. And so I just hope that this presentation has just blessed you and been beneficial to you today. And, I don't know how long Cal is going to be able to stay on, but if you want to continue to pop some questions in the chat room for Cal, that's fine. Please do so. And again, the information is there on how to connect afterwards. Please take advantage of that. Cal, thank you again. We love having you. And I'm so happy that you were here. I'm so happy that we're able to record this so that the rest of our providers can get this information as well. So any parting words, Cal?
Just thank you, and keep feeling the feels.
Keep feeling the feels. Love it. Love it. Thank you so very much.
You guys.
Thank you. Wonderful. That's great. And again, thank you for, we don't want this to be just a presentation where we're presenting to you. So thank you for engaging and asking questions, because, that's how we share this information. So I do want to kind of move along here and be respectful of time. And I am going to bring in our next guest. Very excited to have her. And this is going to be Cheldin. Let me just bring her on with me here. Hi, Cheldin. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So next we have Cheldin Barlatt Rumer, and she is the CEO and executive producer of This Is It Network. She spent more than 2 decades creating and managing and executing strategic market campaigns for clients with a various lifestyles in the industries. She has a commitment to communicate and market education by sharing entrepreneurial stories through this talk show. And we are just so very excited to have her here to present with us today. So Cheldin, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun. It was wonderful eavesdropping and paying attention to what was just said. I think it's so important to be able to communicate not only what it is that you're doing, but how you can help others. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I am committed to elevating the voice of remarkable people, remarkable individuals that have not only a story to tell, but the ability in order to tell it, the ability in order for them to participate within a practice of their life, in which I call your ability to scream your dream. Everyone has a unique way of doing what it is that they are doing. And in this room, in this Zoom, we have a lot of like-minded professionals that are working towards helping those within their community, those within their network, in getting closer to what it is that their goals are. And my hope is through, some techniques and the philosophy of our Scream Your Dream mission is to share that with all of you. I'm going to try to share my screen, Melissa. And so please let me know if that works for you.
Sure. Let me just make you co-host just to make
perfect.
sure that we can do that.
Sure.
Perfect. That should give you access to that.
Wonderful. Slideshow and start from there. Can you see that, Melissa?
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is, I'm going to run you through our Scream Your Dream philosophy. And this is really on the heels of what Cal had just said, as far as understanding and recognizing the value that you have. What I'm going to attempt to teach you to do is to be able to share that value with the right people. And in order to be able to share that value with the right people, not just expand your businesses, but have your businesses filled with the right individuals that hear and see you differently, we must be able to address what it is that you are doing, the beauty of what it is that you are sharing with the world, and how in which you are choosing to do so. My Scream Your Dream philosophy affords you the ability not only to find your voice, but to no longer whisper your wishes, but to tactfully and with intention share what it is that you want to do. So what we're going to do is move forward with this. I want to share with you what it is that I do on a regular basis. So not only am I the executive producer and host of This Is It Network, I am also an adjunct professor at both Temple and Drexel universities, in which I teach personal branding and social media strategy, primarily to undergraduate students and small business owners. The ability for you to begin and continue to tell your story is so important, but the story must belong to you. We are in a cluttered space in this world wide web of individuals who believe that they have all authority to share information, and in a lot of cases, misinformation. And that mutes out those of us that are studied and pedigreed and have the experience and expertise that is needed by those out there that are longing for it, those out there that are searching for it. What I want for us to do based on this Scream Your Dream philosophy is for us to be able to, again, find our voice and utilize our personal brands in order to be able to find the right clientele and build the communities that, again, hear and see us differently. Your personal brand is what people say and think about you in your absence. It's the ability to help an individual and have that individual say, oh my goodness, I loved working with Mary, Sharon, Susan. I loved what Cal had to say. You must connect with them. It's going to be super important for us to be able to identify who we are and what we offer, that value we bring to the table. And not only identify that value, but with clarity, be able to communicate it. Not only for us to say it, but for others to hold on to who we are, hold on to our value, and to be able to utilize that when they come across a person in need. So I want us to begin to utilize our voices, both online and offline. I want us to be able to share our brand with a personal touch and with our professional services in mind. I want us to do this before we are hangry. And so throughout this presentation, you're going to be hearing a lot of analogies or a lot of examples. I'm a visual learner, so I like to be able to frame things in a visual stance. This is not you being hungry. This is you being hangry. Oftentimes, when we might have lesser amount of clients that we would ideally like, we might be coming on to a difficult quarter or looking to be able to fill our books. We're at that point hangry. We're at that point in a hangry space where we are literally looking to build our businesses or looking to help as many people as possible, but we are doing it in a frantic state. We are not doing it as if we are perusing through a menu and have plenty of time to do so. We are shopping at the grocery store hangry. And if any of you have shopped at a grocery store hangry, you end up buying whipped cream and an avocado and you cannot make a meal out of that. When you are hangry, you are not making rational decisions. You are doing things out of desperation, right? You are taking any client that is available and you are participating in things that you would otherwise not do if you had the time, resources allotted. So what I want us to do is I want us to find our voice before we get hangry. I want us to tell our stories before we do so out of desperation. I want us to share with individuals that we know, like, and trust what we do, what we offer, and how often we do it. And my goodness, how much we charge in order to be able to execute our expertise. Because we want to do so in a controlled and calm way and not a frantic and desperate space. We want to focus on our personal brand and elevating our voice before we become hangry. I want to hope that all of you are sticking with me as my analogies continue. Another piece, and especially in this crowded space that we all have, as we're all battling for social media space, there was mentions of Facebook and whether it's Twitter or Instagram, and I'm hashtag over 40 on TikTok if you are ever in that neck of the woods. But in such a crowded space, what I encourage all of you to do is to ignore what friends used to say back in the day. There was this notion of faking it till you make it. I'm going to put stuff out into the world and I'm going to hope that it sticks. There is no need to fake it. We no longer fake it in this world. We just keep it real. Why? Because in my opinion, a fake plant never grows roots. There is no story in fiction. There must be rooted in who it is that we are and what it is that we want and why we deserve it. And that is the story that we continue to tell. We want to make sure people understand how long we've been doing what we've been doing. We're not going to fast forward the tracks. And that's even for those individuals who have just started on their entrepreneurial journey or opened their practice. There's something beautiful about the authenticity of telling your story as you are. There are individuals that I love to work with simply because they're new or simply because they've been in the industry for 20 plus years. Whatever your story needs to be, it needs to be factual. Fiction doesn't work. Fake plants never grow roots. They never have stories to tell. So when you begin to think about what it is that you must tell to the world, it must be your authentic self. It must be who you are in this moment in order for you to get closer to what it is that you want, closer to being able to help the individuals who need and deserve all that you offer. So if somebody says, you know, I'm just trying to fake it till I make it, I need you to say, Cheldin said no. Cheldin said we can no longer say that. Cheldin said that there is no such thing. The only thing we must do, especially as we build and look to help others, as we look to heal others, is to keep it real. As we are beginning to find our voice, we must know it. I say this to tons of entrepreneurs. The majority of entrepreneurs do not give themselves an orientation of their business. If you were to start a new position or a new job, right, you would be hired by an institution. They would give you an orientation. That orientation lasts from 3 days to 2 weeks, where you watch multiple videos about the corporate culture and multiple videos about how to submit your paperwork and go to multiple meetings and tours of the facility. As entrepreneurs, we don't give ourselves an orientation. We're not clear on who it is we are and what it is we're selling. We don't define the story, the product, and the services in which we offer. We just roll with it. We don't create campaigns. We don't do it strategically. In essence, we just present ourselves to the world in hopes that people receive what we think that we are offering. What I want you to do is I want you to give yourself a little audit. I want you to see what other people see about you. So many of you are doing so many amazing things, but you are making it a scavenger hunt for people to find you. Now, keep in mind, you might be saying, okay, she teaches social media. She's about personal branding. She wants me to be an Instagram influencer or a TikTok sensation. And that's not what I am saying by any stretch of the imagination, because the majority of you, if any of you, got into your line of work to go viral on the internet. And I'm not asking you to break the internet, go viral, or have something that transforms what people are liking, following, or fanning. But what I am asking you to do is to be found. There are people in their home in this moment that need you. There are people in their home in this moment that deserve what it is that you have to offer. And there are people in this moment that cannot find you. And if we can use our voice in order to be found, again, not to break the internet, not to become an Instagram star, not to go viral, but simply to be found by those who need us, by those who deserve us. That is what I'm asking you to do. Am I leaving enough breadcrumbs behind for individuals to have conversations about me in my absence? The majority of huge opportunities that have happened for all of us have happened without us being in the room, happened without us being in the Zoom. A friend has referred you. A friend has shared your information. A colleague has said, oh my goodness, you must talk to Melissa. And from that, your life has changed. Your calendar has changed and your book has filled up. But are you giving that individual enough information in order to have that conversation? Or when an opportunity arises that you could fill, are they saying, I don't know if I know anybody. I'm not really quite sure what she does. I think she does something like that. I think they do something like that. Are you arming the people in your world with enough information in order to help additional individuals or to help you reach your goals and therefore, in essence, scream your dream? I need you to do a little bit of research on what people are finding about you, what they find about you socially, professionally. Is it clear? If I were to look you up today, would I be able to be clear on what it is that you are currently doing or what it is that I find was your last real estate job? I want us to gain clarity on what we put out into the world as we elevate our voice. I want us to build our story. Your story, in my opinion, is made up of your unique equation, as I've coined it. Your unique equation is who you are, what you want, and why you deserve it. Understanding how to build a story about yourself will arm you with the necessary talking points in which you have. Now, keep in mind, as you could probably tell, I am an extrovert. I make friends with individuals in the produce section. I have no problems talking to strangers and screaming from the rooftops. What I'm teaching in this moment is not just for extroverts. If anything, this works very, very well and has proven tried and true for individuals who are extremely introverted. If anything, it's for individuals who want to be intentional with their voice, who want people to be clear on who they are, who want people to understand what it is that they want, and they are able to justify why they deserve it. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about who you are. And oftentimes in life, we never get an opportunity to sit with ourselves, about ourselves, and learn who we are. We very seldom have an opportunity to be like, who the heck am I in this moment, in this busy world, especially as you are trying to help other people. I call it the big piece of chicken, right? And this is stereotypically a scenario that happens with individuals and primarily women who cook for other people and serve other people. When cooking for my family, I give my husband the big piece of chicken. I give my children the best pieces of pizza when ordered. I stand by the sink and eat. They have had seconds and I haven't eaten yet. I give them the big piece of chicken. I don't give myself an opportunity to understand who I am, to truly enjoy the meal that I have created. I'm constantly giving. Understanding your unique equation offers you the big piece of chicken, lets you sit down, right, and determine clearly who you are, what you want, and why you deserve it. So I need us to go back to basics. Who are you? I want us to identify some life facts about who it is that you are. These are things that cannot be disputed. Right? I'm an immigrant. I was born in Sierra Leone, West Africa. That is a fact. That is not an opinion. That is part of my brand story and often comes up when I'm introducing myself to individuals. I'm also a former Division I athlete. I played field hockey and ran track for LaSalle University. That is a fact. Though 20 years removed, an absolute fact. It's part of my brand story. How you started your business, you transitioning from one career to another. These are facts. These aren't things to be hid. These aren't things to be ashamed of. These are actual things that you can lend to a conversation as you begin to tell your story. These are ways in which people remember you and know you. These are part of your basics. Your strengths, as I mentioned, I love to speak in front of people and conduct keynote speeches. I love to educate and throw a good event. That is a skill that I have. What are your strengths? So many times we are leading with self-deprecation, even when we are looking to help other people. We're not leading in our strengths. We're not starting the conversation and continuing the conversations with our zone of genius. We are doing so within a space of lacking. So we're going to identify those strengths. We're going to recognize our weaknesses. I can comfortably say that I am not good with the spreadsheet and I am not good at math. And that's not to say that I do not have the fundamentals. It just means it's not my zone of genius. So I would never be hired as someone's accountant. At least I would never suggest it. It's about leaning into your excellence. It's about recognizing your weaknesses so you can give it to someone else that deserves it, someone else that thrives on Excel. I release it and I give it to them because I'm going to focus on who it is that I am and the strengths that I bring to the table. That is who I am. I want you to recognize who you are, because going into the orientation of your life's work, we want to make sure that we have your corporate culture and who you are and what makes you unique. And we want to share that with the right people. I want you to address what it is that you want. So seldom are we given the opportunity to truly recognize what we want as a provider, as a business owner. What is our daydream? What does that look like for us? Oftentimes, we're one of two things. We're either big thinkers like myself, admittedly, or we are day-to-day thinkers, right? And I'm sure I have a combination of a number of these on here on this Zoom. Now, I can coin this your tattoo goal. Your tattoo goal is your long-term goal. This is a goal that you are thinking of long-term. It is something that is tattooed on you that can only be surgically removed. It is what you think about when you close your eyes, multiple office practice, helping the right people, making an impact in your community, right? Going overseas and doing the same. This is your long-term goal. And often of us, we think in that long term. I remember being 21 thinking that I wanted a corner office with a glass conference room, right? I understood and I could see myself in that space. I was long-term thinking. The problem with that is that I didn't have any short-term plans. I call those sticker goals. Your sticker goal is what you have to do today in order to get to your tattoo. A sticker goal must stick. It must adhere for at least a few. It doesn't blow off with the wind. It does in fact stick, but it is not permanent. It is not chiseled on your tombstone. It's what you must do today in order to get to your long-term goal. The other analogy that I use is your GPS. A number of us, especially with our businesses, are getting into our car without putting a destination in our GPS. We're like, I'm just going to go left and right. How do you know that you are moving in the right direction if there is no destination in the dash? We must put something in our GPS. We must have a tattoo goal, and we must have sticker goals, those lefts and rights that we make along the way, and continue to tell our story every day. So more people have information about what you do and the strengths that you provide, so they can tell your story in your absence. So I need you to identify what it is that you want. What it is that you want may simply be to finally get that website up, right? From a marketing standpoint, to let people know in an organization or group a new service or package that you are offering. Your tattoo goal may be to expand into another office or have national clients or finally launch that virtual program, right? It will be a household name. But in order to get to our destination, we must make the lefts and rights necessary. In order to finally get that tattoo, we must make the stickers and outline our path. So I need you to not only understand who it is that you are, I need you to be comfortable with what it is that you want. Lastly, I want you to be able to be clear on why it is that you deserve it. Now, the humble nature in the majority of us see bragging as a negative thing, but I need us to step into our brag. Because when you have done it, when you are accomplished in it, when you are not faking it till you make it, bragging is simply sharing if it's the truth. If you've helped X amount of people, if you've studied and have this accreditation, then it's simply sharing what you've been able to accomplish and the individuals that you've been able to help. There is no bragging in that. In a negative sense. I want you to own the brag and do so boldly. I want you to share. Again, this is no longer a scavenger hunt. I want you to be found. So living online and offline, I want you to live your accomplishments. I want those accomplishments to live in both your occupation and in your experiences, especially for those of you that are just starting out, or those of you that have transitioned from a corporate space into an independent space. I want you to talk about your experiences in your industry of choice. I want you to talk about your impact and the difference that you have made in individuals' lives without necessarily associating it with an institution or a corporation. And oftentimes people have a hard time in finding their voice within the brag, finding their voice within that story when they begin to share the truths about who that is that they are. And here are examples that I want you to kind of think about when looking for that information. I want you to find your highlight reel. These are things in which you have done. Again, these are facts, accomplishments in which you have participated in. Again, I was a former Division I athlete. I played field hockey and ran track for LaSalle. They required, I'm aging myself, tape, right? You needed to give the highlights of what Cheldin Barlatt at the time was capable of doing. It was me scoring, me running, me making sure that I was passing, me acting as a captain, me and the highlight of what it was that I was doing within that sport. I put that into a reel. I want you to do the same as it relates to your industry of choice and the accomplishments and what you have done. I want you to think about them and have that highlight reel in the back of your pocket. These are the things in which I've accomplished. These are the people in which I have helped loosely. This is the type of work in which I do. This is the highlight reel of my business. And feel comfortable in sharing that, not only out loud, but online. Not to go viral, but to be found. So when I say your name in your absence, there's a point of reference that justifies your excellence. You need that highlight reel to live somewhere. So the individuals that are having that conversation about you can utilize it as a tool in order to justify what it is that you want, in order to help the individual in their life that need you. But you may say to me, hey, Cheldin, I feel very repetitive, right? I feel repetitive. I feel like it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. Well, there's a couple analogies I have for that, right? But one of the big ones is I'm a lover of live music. And I don't know if any of you share my love of concerts and shows and festivals, right? And music. And now that the world has begun to open up live music, woo, I've been coming for you. And what happens when I go see my favorite musicians, right? I have a soft spot for John Bon Jovi. It's a weird thing, but it's the truth, right? When I go and I see him perform, I listen to the music in the car the whole way. Right? And I'm singing along. I park the car and I listen to the music in the parking lot as we do, preparing for the show. It's the same songs over and over again. And again, I sing out loud. And then I go into that large stadium and I listen and I wait with bated breath for him to sing those same songs again, because I know them each and every word. I rely on his greatest hits. Individuals who are searching for you, individuals who need you, are relying on you sharing the best of you. Again, we are not faking it till we make it. We are not embellishing. We are just sharing who it is that we are. We are doing our best to gather our highlight reels, all of the things in which we have done and our greatest hits, all of the things in which we have won, because there is an audience waiting to hear it again and again and again. And even if they're not waiting to hear it, they need to be reminded of it for when they do need it. So many of us may be in this moment and say, I didn't get any direct gratification from going to that networking event or going to, that meeting or meeting on a Sunday. Oh, it was a wonderful time. I was able to meet people, but I didn't make any transactions. Your ability to repeat your greatest hits will remind individuals in your absence of your excellence and give them the tools they need in order to share it on your behalf. Very few people wake up and they're like, what is Cheldin up to? So I remind them what I'm up to in the off chance that they need me. And oftentimes individuals that I meet 6 months, a year, 5 years ago will say, oh, are you still doing? Oh, can I hire you for this? I didn't need you then, but I need you now. I didn't know that my brother had a service that they needed of yours, and can you help? Your highlight reel and your greatest hits, your accomplishments, what you've done and what you have won will help you elevate your voice, will give you the space and the confidence needed in order to get closer to what it is that you want. I want you to really think about this as I begin to wind things down, and the way in which the majority of us elevate our voices or choose not to. Again, as I mentioned, I'm an adjunct professor, so I teach young people, and they get confused on the necessity of this or the need for this. And I say to them, I said, how do you feel when you have studied for a test? And be like, it's fine, I can take the test, it's easy, it's simple, right? Give me that number 2 pencil, that blue book, that Scantron sheet, I've got it because I am prepared. And I say to them equally, how do you feel when you have not studied for a test? When you don't know the answers, what you start doing is looking around, blaming your roommate, your cat's friends, dogs, boyfriend, all the things, looking at the clock, making regrets and excuses because you're not prepared. When asked to tell your story, who you are, what you want, and why you deserve it, I want you to be prepared for your test. I want you to know who you are. I want you to be clear on what you want, and I want you to justify why you deserve it, but I only want you to share it with the right people. I want you to find your tribe because you are not for everyone. Less is always more. I truly believe in life that the right people hear and see you differently. The people who need you, the people who have to have you, and the people who are searching for you, the people who deserve you, hear and see you differently. You identify the target market that can change your life. You narrow in the community of individuals that you can focus on and speak to. And in this worldwide web of worlds in which there is imposter syndrome, and we are looking at other practitioners and other people's accounts, and we're wondering why they're so busy and we're not so busy. Oftentimes we are doing the right thing, but in the wrong rooms. We are doing the right thing, saying the right thing, presenting in the right way, but only to the wrong audience. We must find our people. The right people hear and see us differently, and being consumed solely by likes and follows and, oh my goodness, this isn't getting enough traction. I speak to people on a regular basis that have small followings, and I'll say to them, hey, how many people are paying attention to your account? And that's what I kind of call it. And they'll say, we only have 100 people. When I have more followers, I'll be able to tell better stories, or I'll be able to put better content out into the world, or I'll be able to communicate in a better way. I said, but what about the 50 people that are currently following you? Because if you were to have 2 more clients this week, it may change your bottom line and definitely change their life. We are not trying to go viral. We are trying to make an impact. We are trying to ensure that we are found. We do not need 1 million followers to make $1 million, and we do not need 1 million followers to make a true impact. We need the right people. We need to continue to say the right things in the right rooms. We need to focus on the quality of what we have going on to ensure that we can elevate our voice. We find our stories. We share our uniqueness. We ensure that we are clear on who we are, what we want, and why we deserve it. We find the right rooms to tell our stories. We ensure that we no longer whisper our wishes, but we in fact scream our dream. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about elevating your voice today and tomorrow and on, and happy to help you in telling your story.
Wow. Well, I don't know who's ready to scream, because I think you all should be at this point ready to scream your dream. That's like something, we need this on a Monday morning when you're getting ready, you get all pepped up. So yeah, so excited. Looks like Mary has a question for you. Mary, if you want to come off mute.
I don't have a question, but I thank you so much. This was absolutely wonderful.
Oh.
And well, I guess in a kind of way I do. It's because, and I started writing down things for Melissa too, because we've never met. And I am so thankful to Patty and Ellen, because back in 2015, they reached out to me to become a provider for Unite for her. And I am so blessed that way. And I noticed that, I'm hearing, the numbers, I'm hearing, less is more. And in the time that I've spent with Unite for Her as a provider, if I had 3 clients that have come to me, and I often wonder, okay, I feel like I'm in a black hole here. Like I know that look at all the women that we've been providing services for. And I just think, okay, I'm here in Cumberland County. I service the shore area, Gloucester County. Where's my people? How are the women being guided to the providers? I know a lot of people are in a lot of, more areas that are bigger and, have more services that are being provided. And I feel like I'm back in the country. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. When I moved here, it's like, wow, I'm in the country. I'm starting to feel like I'm back in the country again. So you're wonderful. You
Oh.
are absolutely wonderful. I'm
Thank
just
you.
so psyched right now.
Oh, Mary, well, thank you so much. I grew up in Galloway Township, New Jersey, so I
Oh.
understand the woods. I'm down there with
Yes.
you. So I live currently in Washington Township, New Jersey. We're gonna have to get
And
a
my
cup of
daughter
tea.
lives there. My daughter lives there.
See,
Yeah.
I'm sure I see you at the shop, right, Mary?
There you
I'm sure I
go.
see you at the shop.
So
But no,
thank
for sure.
you.
I mean, I think a lot of us are waiting, right? Because that's the nature of a lot of things and a lot of spaces, you know, no one gets into business, and this has not to do with your industry or the cupcake lady. No one gets into
Right,
business
right.
to be on Instagram all day.
Yes.
She got into business to bake cookies. She didn't get into business to be on Instagram all day. Neither did you, right? And so now these scenarios and these tools, and that's all they are tools that are necessary for us to be found. And I think that us being able to even tell your story independently, us working together to be able to do that, whether it's directly through Unite for Her or finding individuals that can help tell that story. But I have to tell you that oftentimes our humbleness, right? The majority of our family members have no idea what we do. Zero
You're
idea.
right.
Zero idea.
You're right.
And I say it to my students all the time. I'm like, you're coming back from holiday break. I'm like, does Uncle Bob know what you're studying? Because you've asked me 6 times, I can't find a job. I can't find a job. Your uncle's girlfriend works at the place in which you want to work, and you don't even know. You're just like, pass the potatoes, right? Like,
Yes.
we need to share what we are doing. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't. We get it. We're misunderstood. We are outnumbered by people who do not understand us. I'm clear on that. But that's why the rooms that you are in are really important, and understanding who needs you. So when you close your eyes, this is just an exercise for all of you, but Mary in particular,
Okay.
what does that client look like?
She's
But
me.
we're reverse engineering it for
She's
you.
me. She could be me.
So where do you live?
That's true. I live everywhere.
Right? Well, how do you participate in life? Where do you go and seek information? Right? And where does your information live in those spaces? And most likely it doesn't. Right?
Right.
And so what we need to do is begin to leave those breadcrumbs where your community, your ideal target market would live. And in a lot of cases, we are our own ideal target market, right?
Yes.
And so how can we begin to ensure, and that's what that audit is that, okay, I want to have more clients in this moment. Can people find me? And what do they find when they look for me? When I say, oh my goodness, I just met Mary, she's amazing. I give somebody your first and last name, they go Google you, what do they find?
Okay.
Right? And does that give them enough information in order for them to make a decision as to whether or not they should pick up the phone and call you?
Right.
That's all I need you to do. I don't need you to TikTok. I don't need you to lip sync. I don't
want to do any of that anyway. No TikTok for me. But even like for our clients that we have through Unite for Her, when they go to Jefferson Hospital, they go to Penn, where are and here's a prime example. My cousin here in Vineland did not know about Unite for Her. Right. She has just gone through breast cancer herself. And I said, Dawn, why are you not participating? She reached out, she became one of my clients.
Yay. Okay, yeah.
And I'm so happy for her. And I said, use your passport. Everybody needs to use their passport. I have a woman from Egg Harbor Township that I have not seen in a while, but she came to me. I've been a nurse for 45 years and I've been doing Reiki for 30 years and I absolutely love it. My heart is in healing.
Yeah.
So yes, and I do. I think you're a bomb. You're just like great. You're the bomb.
Thank you. And listen, I'm on the board at Unite for Her. My obsession is real. We have grown exponentially.
Oh, I know. I'm so honored.
It is such a wonderful thing. And we always, and Sue will tell you, and the team will tell you, we're always willing and able to do more work in spreading the word and would love all of you to provide us with not only feedback, but other things that we can do. So we're working on additional programs in order for more people to know about us each and every day than yesterday. And so we can pass that not only those opportunities on to all of you, but so we can help more people. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Great. And I see Janice has a question too, but before Janice asks her question, I just want to say, I'm going to now coin that phrase, like, leave your breadcrumbs, because that's exactly what we need to do. So Mary, like you said, you're friend, cousin, whomever, I can't remember who you just said, didn't know about us. Well, you know,
No.
as you are sharing the information, that's how that breadcrumb is going to be left, and more people are going to know about us. So that's what we all have to do in our everyday talkings. You know, we do have partnerships with hospitals, but not all of our patients are going to, or participants are going to come from hospitals, right? They're going to come from the things that we do.
100%.
Sue loves to say that anyone on our team at Unite for Her is in development. That means we are all working to spread the news, the good news
Yes.
about what Unite for Her does. So that is our job. That's every single one who's on here. That's our job for today.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Janice, did you have a question?
Yes, yes, I did. So I'm of the baby boomer generation that didn't grow up with social media as being a core way to tell your story.
Yeah.
And so when I Google myself, I have done many presentations, education kind of videos. And so they're on there, but I do so much more, and I do not know how to increase my presence with what I can do in terms of, in addition to that, either on Google or any of the other formats, which I don't understand at all, as far as, you know, TikTok and Twitter and tweeting and all of that. I'm really, or Instagram, I'm really not comfortable on those platforms. How would someone who has been playing small and comfortable want to begin to tell the story in a bigger way?
For sure. Number one, you don't, I'm saying this to everyone, have to be on everything to make an impact. Okay? Because I'd rather you be on one thing well than everything, right? In that particular way. And it's exhausting. Again, the social media is free, but it's labor intensive, right? It's a job in and of itself. If just LinkedIn works for you, then I'd love for you to be there, right? Just in understanding, you know, the capabilities of it, what makes the most sense. It sounds like you do have a lot, what we call content. So these videos of these presentations, again, in the greatest hits of the thing, sending those videos out over and over again so they continue to live, sharing those links. One, again, you don't have to be on everything. So pick something that you're familiar with. It doesn't have to be TikTok, doesn't have to be Instagram, doesn't have to be Twitter. Hey, if you're looking for me, here's my LinkedIn. This is where it is. That's a comfortable space, as opposed to you saying that you're on all these things and they're not a proper reflection of you. The other piece is that it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to turn into a television producer to be able to share content. One of the ways that you can share content is simply being about sharing existing content that you have, the videos, things in which you have written that make you an authority. The other is really sharing periodicals, media outlets that you know, like, and trust. Again, make sure you read fully those articles, but you want to associate yourself with industry, periodicals, and expertise. You can simply associate yourself with your industry and your authority, pose questions. What do you think about this? This just launched. What do you think about this particular scenario? The internet is a living, breathing thing, how I see her. The way that it works is the more you feed her, the nicer she is to you. The more you put things on it, the more she will respond to you. That algorithm that Zuckerberg and the people keep talking about, that's what it is. It's the more you pay attention, the more you feed her, in simple terms, the nicer she is to you. Very few people go to the second page of Google. When's the last time you went down there and clicked number 2? Never, ever, right? If you Google something, you look on that first page. So what we want to do is feed the internet, right? So the things that are most relevant make sense and they live up there. One of the other things that I need you to do is I want you to figure out your value menu. That's what I call it, right? You know, I know we don't do this, but in the fast food chains of things, I'll have a number 2 and a Coke, right? It's a value menu. It's a very short list of things in which you offer. That doesn't mean if you buy a number 2 at McDonald's that you can't buy French fries by itself, that you can't buy a McFish, a bad example. But I'm saying that there's other things that are on your menu, but I want you to control a campaign. What are the top 3 things that you want the world, the right world, to know about you? And I want you to leave that as an actual campaign that you put out into the world. So 1, pick a social medium that you can manage. 2, share. It doesn't always have to be you that's the author of the content. Find trusted pieces of content that you can share that justify your position in your industry. And then 3, create a campaign with a value menu. What are you offering in a controlled sense that I can be like, okay, these are the 3 things that Janice offers, that now when I go meet a friend, I know that those 3 things are what you offer. When they get on the phone with you, they can get the laundry list of things, but we need to lead the horse to water type of scenario for you. So again, to make it simple, pick a social media platform that you can manage, just one. If you have a website, that would be amazing, because then this is the social media platform and the website that says who you are and tells your story. Then make sure that you're able to share content, and that content can be once a week. You don't have to break the internet. Just make sure that you feed the internet at least once a week and then share content from another trusted platform. And then whatever it is you're sharing, make sure that it's part of a value menu, a controlled group of services that you provide that give people an idea of what it is that you offer. So controlled.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to go back and read or watch this. So I
Please,
remember
please,
all
and
of
you can
those,
always
but
get in touch with me. I'm here for all of you. I love, and I live for this. So if any of you need anything else, I'm definitely available to talk it through with you and help you. Because again, oftentimes we're doing the right things, but just in the wrong rooms. And the minute you change the room that you're in, your world changes, right? I mean, oftentimes we're speaking to people who would never purchase from us ever, who would never buy from us ever. And we're utilizing their feedback as our truth, right? That determining that this is where my business falls, when that's not the case, you're just simply in the wrong room. So let's, I'd love to be able to reevaluate or to be able to talk through a workshop, any of your issues that you may have in branding.
wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. Yay. Well, I'm so happy to have met all of you. Again, I am available. If you need anything, please let me know. I'm definitely willing to chat, one-on-ones, group sessions, whatever it happens to be. Our Scream Your Dream community is always available and helps entrepreneurs in telling their story, in addition to all the work we do at This Is It Network. So thank you so much. I love Unite for Her. They're stuck with me for the long haul. So I'm super excited to have been here today.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. And we want to be stuck with you for sure. You will allow us to, for all of us to scream your dream. So this is awesome. So thank you so very much for being here.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your day, ladies. Take
Thank
care.
you.
And ladies and
Thank
gents,
you.
I will see you all soon. Take care.
Wonderful. Lots of applause. I love it. Thank you so much. This has been great. And you know what, ladies, thanks for engaging and asking questions and the feedback in the chat. Anna, I see you have a question. I hope that wasn't for Cheldin because I think she has left already, but if it's so, we can still get it to her. Oh, was that just applause, Anna? Maybe it was just applause. Great. But again, if you ever want to contact Cheldin, we can certainly do that. And I just want to, before I go on, again, being respectful of time, there has been some direct messaging to me just asking about how things were done before, the pandemic and having discussion groups and things like that for the individual providers. This is something that we are so willing to do. We host a different type of education. We have our virtual hangouts and different things. If we want to do something provider specific, we can certainly do that. We are more than happy to pull together any type of programming so that we can continue to communicate with you all. So share the feedback of something that you may be interested in learning, discussing, any other speakers that you may want to have. We say that this is an annual retreat, but it doesn't have to be just once a year. Again, we appreciate your involvement. We appreciate your support, and we want you to be involved as much as you want to be. So certainly share the feedback with me, and then we will continue to share it with our team, and we can have more of these types of meetings where we can have these open discussions and brainstorming and ideas for everyone as well. So I just want to plant that little seed there. Okay, so next, as Sue mentioned, some of you were on when Sue was here, but she thought it might be a good idea to go over our passport, just so you can see what our women have access to. So I am going to go to share my screen and show this passport. And I hope you can all see that. Can you see the passport here? Great. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Michelle, for the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Okay, so this is our wellness passport for those of you who have not seen it, or it may just be a reminder to those of you who have. And you'll see this in the PowerPoint presentation that I have too, but I'll just go over it briefly. Our local passport, you know, we have two different divisions. We have our local program, which is Pennsylvania and Delaware and parts of New Jersey. That is considered to be our local footprint. And anything outside of that is our national footprint. So for our local passport, you can see that it's made up of 10 squares, and we call these our wellness passport squares. And it's divided into 3 different sections that they can use the services for their wellness passport. Those being the integrative therapies, acupuncture, oncology massage, Reiki, counseling, and private yoga and meditation. We have our nutrition section as well, where you can get a grocery gift card, you can get a CSA share, or you can get a meal delivery service through Sunbasket, and you have fitness options. So along these, you see how many squares represent the number of squares need to be used for that particular service. So with you as being, most of you here are, you know, in the integrative therapies, one square will utilize one session or give a participant one access to one appointment. And we do want to just, I know that sounds like very common sense, but we just do want to make a reminder of that, because sometimes the women, when they're coming to you, they may not know, or they may forget what their passport is. We do ask, if someone is making an appointment with you, to just remind them, especially now that we're starting to get back in person, that if they can bring their passport with them, just so you as the provider can mark off the usage of one of these squares. That does 2 things. It ensures that they are indeed on the program, because some women have heard about our program, but may not have actually registered for it. You know, we are growing, word of mouth is growing as well. So people are hearing about the program, but we want to make sure that they're registered and officially have a passport. So by you asking to see their passport and marking off on the squares, that ensures that they are indeed registered for the program and they will have access to your services. And second, it also allows them to know how many squares they have remaining. But again, these are the services that are available during the passport. And just so you know, on the back side of the passport, there are other services that are part of our wellness program that do not utilize any squares. And we call this our all access pass. This means that, again, no squares are used for any of these services. Our participants can have access to these services at any time, as often as they need, especially like our nutrition consultations, which is a 30-minute phone consultation with our registered dietitians. They can have as many of those appointments as necessary without using any of their passport squares. They have all of the educational content that they can use, whether it be the live cooking webinars or the wellness on demand for all of our educational content we have on our Her library. So that's just a small reminder of what the passport is. If no one has seen a passport, if you're not sure what that means, but people, you know, our participants always talk in terms of squares, like, you know, how many squares do I have left, or how many squares does this use? So that's just a bit of the education there for that. Okay. And so next I am going to just quickly bring up just a PowerPoint presentation to go over some of what happened last year, kind of like a year in a review, and also to tell you what we are planning for this year. So as I go to here in my PowerPoint, wonderful. Taking a minute. Okay, here we go. So again, our local program is made up of Eastern Pennsylvania and Southern and Central New Jersey and Northern Delaware, though that's the area of our footprint. And I, again, am the local senior wellness manager for Unite for Her. And just to give you an update on what happened last year, this is a recap of what happened last year. We were able to serve more than our original goal was. So last year we served a total of 1,573 newly diagnosed breast patients and 113 ovarian. And then with the metastatic, we served a total of 667. So with our metastatic community or our recurrent ovarian community, please keep in mind that they are eligible to renew their passport every 6 months. So when they finish using their passport squares, they can then request a new passport and start using their services all over again. And we like to say that we are by their side, that we will never leave their side as long as they need us. So last year we served a total of 2,353 women and men on our local program. And some of the things that we added into the program last year, that CSA or the community supported agriculture piece, we did during the summer add the option of having fruits or vegetables. Normally it's just vegetables, but last year we added and we continued on to add fruits during the summer. And that's a seasonal type of offering that our women just really loved. On the national program, you can see the numbers there too. We ended up serving a total of 2,025. And the national passport differs a little bit in the number of passport squares that they have. On the national passport, you see that they have 6 squares. So if any of you are national providers, you know that that is the one difference. National does not offer acupuncture or oncology massages. The services that you are eligible for on a national passport are the yoga and meditation, Reiki, counseling, nutrition, and the fitness options. So again, acupuncture and massage therapy is not offered. Now, we've had people ask us, why isn't it offered? And the short answer is that because we do not have providers in every state or in every county and the rest of the 47 states out there. So the next question is asked, well, is it possible that maybe we could issue them a gift card so then they can go to a provider of their choice for these services? And the answer to that right now, that is something that we are looking further into. However, we, just like we have lead advisors for our program, we want to make sure that all of our providers that are, with our Unite for Her network are fully qualified, fully credentialed, and know their culture of Unite for Her, right? We want our women to have the top-notch providers. And if we were just to lend out a gift card for them to go to see someone else, we're not sure because they haven't gone through our vetting process as of yet. So that is not an option just yet for acupuncture or oncology massage through a gift card or anything like that, but we are trying to come up with different options. And I did want to share that because some people have asked that. So that is something, a work in progress that we are trying to come up with somewhere further down the line. So in total for 2022, we served a total of 4,378 participants, which was up from our fiscal year in 21 by 45%. So we had an amazing increase that was mostly due to going national. And as Sue mentioned, our funding was there for that, and our funding is still going strong, but we're not looking to grow that much this year. We're looking to do just a little bit over 5,000. I'll show you that on our next slide here. So with our local program, this is our goal for what we'd like to serve this year. So our goal is to serve 2,032 new participants. So that's newly diagnosed breast and ovarian. And then when you add in the recurrent, again, remembering that the recurrent ovarian or metastatic breast cancer patients can then renew their passport over and over again. Our goal is to serve over 2,500 women this year on our local program. And again, that's with the 10 square passport that will remain in effect, and renewing it every 6 months will remain in effect as well. So prior to the pandemic, we all know that we used to do our wellness days in person, and then we all had to make this shift and we went to doing virtual wellness days. Well, we are looking to sprinkle in a few in-person wellness days, and our first one is going to be in October of this year. It's going to be on a Friday at the Drexel Brook Event and Catering Center in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania. And our thought is right now that we're going to try to do one a quarter, one in-person wellness day a quarter. just so we can start to get back into the role of being in person again. We know that many of our patients are still immunocompromised, and we want to respect that. And also keeping the virtual wellness days gives them an opportunity to participate if they're not feeling well, if they have transportation issues, or they just can't make it for any particular reason. So we will continue with our virtual wellness days, but we will sprinkle in the in-person wellness days as well. And again, Sue mentioned at the beginning of the program that on our local wellness program and our national program, we are looking for a new position. We're looking for our wellness program engagement liaison role. What this role will do is help to reach out to our participants to help them use this passport. We've heard so many times that, our women are very excited about being on our program and very excited about using the passport. However, there's things that get in the way for them. They have their treatments, they have their appointments. They may not be sure of how to use it. So by bringing on this role, it's going to be a more intimate role where they can reach out to our participants and kind of handhold them and guide them onto the different services that are available for them to use. And that will hopefully bring an uptick. We know that everyone is able to go back in person as a provider at this point. The virtual option is still there too, but we want to see our passport being used more and more by women and men that are on our program. It's great to meet our numbers, our goal numbers. However, we want to make sure that they're using the services as well. Okay, and then, so for the national program here, the national program, excuse me, there we go. The national program is run by Nina Retrovato, which some of you may remember Nina before I came on board. Nina was doing the local, and so we've kind of split down the middle of our responsibilities. The national program this year, we're looking to serve almost 2,500 women and men on our program, and you can see the breakdown there. We're looking to do 804 newly diagnosed breast patients and 77 ovarian. But what's interesting on the national program is we had a huge surge of metastatic women, and that was due mostly to a lot of the private Facebook groups that are out there, and they've heard about Unite for Her. And it's actually funny because a lot of them just kind of write in messages to us and saying, how can I get vegetables? We know that the cost of food is so, outrageous right now, and that there are food deserts and there's food insecurity all over everywhere. And we're trying to serve in those areas. So our metastatic community grew leaps and bounds, much more than what we had planned it on growing. But with that metastatic diagnosis, we know again that we're able to serve them over and over again. So our numbers there are a little bit different. And so this is why overall we're looking to serve about 2,500 for our national program here. And just to go over our provider requirements again, you see emails that I send out. Documentation is very key for us. We want to make sure that everybody is up to date with their insurance and with their licensure. So, if you know that yours is coming due, we ask that you send that out, but I will always send out reminders just saying, your insurance information is due. And if you could send that back in a timely fashion so that we can share that with our accountant, that's perfect. Again, each year in January, we will send out that provider seal. And that provider seal, will go a long way, and kind of just like Cheldin was saying, like where you are on your social media, or are you leaving those breadcrumbs along the way? If you are having documents with, your information, feel free to put that provider seal on your documents and on your website and on your social media so that people know that you are part of Unite for Her. So that's a great way of letting them know, that you're a part of our organization. And this year we were pleased to be able to increase our provider rates. We thank you so much for your service and all that you have done with us. And so we thought it applicable to be able to increase your provider rates. And so thank you for being with us. And we just appreciate all that you do. We're glad that we're able to share that with you. And if you do have any questions about the rates, you can reach out to me separately about that. And also, if you have any questions about wanting to be a speaker at our wellness days, like I said, we're starting to get back in person. We're doing them virtually. We love to showcase new speakers. And the benefit of it is that you are able to present in front of our women and our men that are on our program and just deliver your information in your own way. This is almost like a marketing opportunity as well, so that they see who you are, and maybe they choose you as a provider, and maybe they don't choose specifically you, but we always like to reference that we have a network of providers that one can choose from. And by presenting on the wellness day, you are sharing your discipline, you're sharing your modality, and sharing the benefits of how you can be of help to them. We are in the business of helping people, and this is what we want to do. So if anyone is interested in participating and being a presenter, certainly feel free to reach out to me or Nina if it's on the wellness program, and we will get you scheduled for that. We are booked out for this first half of the year until December. And then we will start the second half of the year from January until June. So we do have some speaking spots available there. So if you're interested, you can certainly let me know that, and I will reach back out to you. I do see there's some things in the chat room, and once I get through the presentation, I will get to that. So I didn't want you to think that I'm ignoring you. Okay. Just a little update on the billing and the best practices here. We do ask, like I mentioned, that when you are talking to someone, making an appointment, ask them to bring that passport with you. From our accounting staff, they are asking that you submit one invoice, for the previous calendar month. And they'd like for you to submit it no later than the 5th of the month, so that they can in turn repay you by the 10th of that month. And then you could see everything that's needed on that invoice in order for the flow and the process to go smoothly for our accounting staff. And please remember to mail the invoices to Kathy Brosnan, and her email is there, cbrosnan@uniteforher.org. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about, our increased staff and what we're trying to do and our mission of diversity. So with our local program last year, we were able to serve, out of that total of 4,000 women and men that we served, 26% of them were women of color that were served on our program. And on that national program, it was 32% women of color. And I say women, it could have been men as well. We do have a few men on the program. But our goal for this year, for both the local and national programs, are to reach out and to serve about 45% of participants of color. That's probably a better way of saying that, because we know that there are so many areas out there of disparity, food disparity and health disparity, and we just really want to reach out and do our best to serve. And so with that, that's bringing us to trying to be more diverse, not only in our staff, but in our providers as well, and in our participants. So we want to make sure that we're covering all areas. And so everybody is educated on what Unite for Her is, and that the mission that we serve. Sue also mentioned that we have our advisory committee and our task force that we formed. And it's really like a medical advisory board that they're able to reach out into the various communities, our Spanish-speaking community, our communities of color, to make sure that that education is getting reached into those areas of well. So what we've done as a staff, we are, opening up positions. We're looking to grow. And this is just who we have on our staff right now. I mentioned that our wellness team is looking for this wellness engagement liaison. So if anyone is interested or know anyone who may be interested, please let me know. We'd be more than happy to entertain that. Our nutrition team has recently added 2 registered dietitian, one being a Spanish-speaking dietitian, another being a dietitian of color. So we now have 4 on our nutrition team. Our fundraising and events just added a new development assistant. So we now have 3 on our fundraising and special events team. Our marketing team is now made up of 3, a staff of 3, and we just added a new digital content manager just this past week. So we are growing, like it seems like every day. Our accounting team added a new bookkeeper or data analyst, which is going to really help us to digest all the data that we have so that we can make very informed and targeted decisions about where our program is going. So that was a position that was really needed. And we are very thrilled about that. And last but not least, we are also looking for a VP of development. This is the position that Sue has been looking to hire for some time. So again, if you know of anyone who is interested, or if you may be interested in yourself, reach out to us. Sue is hiring directly for that position, so we can talk about that as well. And our providers, just to give an update on what we have done this year so far with adding to our provider directory. We have added 2 new providers in Delaware for Reiki. With acupuncture, we've added 3 new providers, and 1 in Burlington County and 2 in Philadelphia County. And one of the providers in Burlington is Spanish speaking, and the providers that we have added for acupuncture are all African American. In yoga, we added a African American provider in the Bucks County area. And massage, we are in the process of adding someone in the Middlesex County. So and let me just back up and saying, when we're talking about adding, we know that our list is full and it's robust, but there are pockets of areas on our provider list that we are trying to fill. And these areas here, we're not only trying to fill in location or with background, but we're looking to say, where are there gaps in our provider directory, that there are few or maybe 1 or 2 in those areas. So that's what we're looking to fill now, to making sure that the areas that we do have women or what am I trying to say, hospitals in that area, we want to make sure that there's providers there. So that's why we are adding to our list right now. In fitness, we added on 3 providers, one in the Burlington area, 1 in Bucks County, and Lancaster County. So we just got a new hospital partnership in Lancaster, Lancaster General. So we needed to make sure that we have providers in that area as well. So we are expanding, we are growing, and we want to make sure that there's representation for our women and men who are on our program. And also you can see that we've added a lot of counselors, mostly, in the states that we didn't have. Michigan was a big one that we were trying to look for. So we have 3 providers in Michigan, and then you can see the list of the other providers there as well. So how do our participants use the passport? We talked a little bit about this at the beginning, that most of the services have been nutrition, and that is pretty representative of, during the pandemic, a lot of the services were virtual and were not being used as often, but the food insecurities is so strong that they started using them for the food services like the CSA or the grocery gift card or the Sunbasket meal delivery. And you can see this as we report for last year, 55% of all of the services used on the local passport were for nutrition services. And then it couples and makes up 45% for the rest of the services. So what we are trying to do, again, by us on the wellness team trying to get this position of this engagement liaison, we want to, now that, the doors are opening to be back in person, we want to make sure that some of these other modalities are being, fully educated upon. We're doing demonstrations and presentations, I should say, in virtual hangouts in our educational series, so that our participants know that these services are available to them. Reiki is a service that maybe is growing. It's definitely growing, and the scientificness behind it is really become profound. I just read an article about the efficacy of Reiki. And, this is what we're trying to get out to our participants. We know that the nutrition services are there and they're first and they're foremost, but we want them to know and we want them to use the other services. And so we're open to suggestions from you as well on how you think that we can educate our participants on using the services that you all represent, because we want to be supportive of you and we want to make sure that our women are getting the best and using their passport to the best that they can get the relief from the side effects and the symptoms that they may be experiencing during this cancer journey. And if we look on the national side, you'll see that nutrition for sure was used most. 90% were used for nutrition services. Again, this is data from last year as we closed the fiscal year last year. So we're really looking to make an increase this year in the other services that are being used. So continue to do what you are doing to support, and we will continue to do as much as we can as well to support all of the therapies that we have on our wellness passport. This leads me to our the last of the slides, and this is our special events. We are so proud to say that we are doing things in person again. So we're very excited about that. And next week we have our 5K or our 2K walk and family tailgate. That's going to be September 24th. That's going to be in person. So there's still time to get involved. And these are ways to, if you ever want to volunteer with any of our events, you are more than welcome to volunteer. You see that I have Carol's information. She is our volunteer coordinator here. We are happy to have our providers not only participate in the events, but volunteer in any way that they see fit. And so we're happy to announce that Harvest is going to be back in person this year. Last year and the years prior, it was in October, but we've moved it up a little bit into November. So the date for that is November 3rd at the Foundry in Phoenixville. And then our Pink Invitational is going to be in person as well, February 16th through the 18th at the Philadelphia Convention Center next year. And then our last elite fundraiser is going to be our Bloom activity. We don't have the exact date for our Bloom fashion show, but keep an eye out for that too, because we will be, sharing all that information. And these are all the fundraisers that, bring our people out, they bring our participants out, and it's a great way of interacting and being together and sharing a great time, and also raising money for more funding and for more participants to be on our program. So that's our update. And I am going to look in the chat in case there's some questions there, or if you want to come off, because it might be easier just to come off of mute or raise your hand if you have any questions about any of the content or any questions about any of the dates or whatever you may have. And while you're doing that, I'm going to look. Harry, I see your hand.
Yes. Could you remind us, what is the process that a participant gets the passport?
So sure, absolutely. We try to make it easy. Although we have hospital partnerships, a lot of the communication goes through the hospital. It's a very simple link, right? So many people get confused. They go to our page on Unite for Her and they're looking to sign up there.
Yep.
We don't put that link on our website because we want to make sure that they're qualified. Mm-hmm. And the qualification is being newly diagnosed within the last 18 months, or as I mentioned, living with recurrent or metastatic disease. And so that can occur at any time. So once someone comes to us, either through the hospital, we give them a link. It's Unite for Her /apply. And then they can go on and it's Google form, and it's very easy. It takes all of about 5 minutes for them to apply. Mm-hmm. They can reach out to myself or Nina directly, and then we can give them the link. And there's flyers. So we also can provide you as providers with flyers that has a QR code on there where they can just scan their phone and it'll take them right to the online registration form.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And maybe it was like pre-pandemic where I heard a couple of clients use the term that they were invited by the nurse navigator. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know, how the whole process. So thank you for that explanation.
Absolutely. Our nurse navigators and our social workers, they are so critical for us. They're that first point of contact. And on our wellness days too, we usually either bring in either a physician or a nurse navigator to just share on our wellness days so that our participants know that we are working with the hospital as well, right? So our goal is to bridge that gap between the medical communities and the wellness communities, and so that we can complement everything that the medical world is doing. Yeah. So that's why we like to have the nurse navigators and the social workers involved with the process.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Melissa?
Yes.
I'm sorry. What did you say? Where can we put the seal, and where we should not put?
If you don't have a seal already for 2022, let me know and I can send you that. You should all have that. The new seal will be coming out in January for 2023, but definitely put it on, your email signatures. You can put it on your website, and you can also just download that and put it on any literature that you may have that, that you're having in the office. If you are interested in having flyers for your office or however, your place of work, we can put that seal right on there for you as well. And so with the QR code that someone can register with the criteria for registering, and then that QR code can be right on that as well. Zerlin?
Yeah. Yes. I would like to know if you could share information. If someone is working somewhere for someone else, they're not entrepreneurial, what can they do? What process should they do to try to connect with Unite for Her and create another opportunity for people in the community?
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part. If they're working for whom?
If they're not working for themselves, if they're working for somebody else, like
Okay.
at a spa or something, how can we facilitate and help people get involved like that as well?
So we have, with the agreement that we have a part of a group agreement. That's what it's called. So say if it's an oncology, a massage place, we have many massage places there that they pick different therapists within their company to be a provider for Unite for Her. So maybe not everyone on that particular facility is a provider for Unite for Her. So what we do is we make sure that the facility is vetted in as, that facility, but then each provider that they want to have under them, then we do them independently. But there is an agreement that the individual person would have to be a part of that group agreement. Does that make sense for you?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just looking in the chat. Jenny says, can you say more about the wellness engagement description? Sure. Absolutely. Well, I don't have a link for it right now, but I can send out the job description to anybody who is interested. It really is, and I don't want to say anything that it's not, but our position right now for this wellness engagement, it's very administrative. Because we need to get that education out and that communication out. So it's a lot of email follow-up. It's a lot of calls, not cold calling. You're calling to the participants that are already on our program just to see if you can assist them with using the program. For example, we have one of the grants that we have afforded to us right now is called from the Gilead Group. And the Gilead Group is looking for specific participants who qualify for this grant. And they are those who are triple negative breast cancer participants. So Nina and I have been reaching out, to our participants and talking to them to see how they're using that passport. That we can, sorry, there's some background noise. We make those calls so that we can then report back those therapies that are being used to get more funding for the grants. I'm going to ask if everyone can just mute themselves for the background noise. So I can definitely send out the description to anyone who may be interested. Just please let me know that. But I will say it is a heavily administrative role with emails and phone calls and data analysis, pulling together data as well. Ray? Ray, if you want to, there you go.
Hi, I had to come off mute. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Ray, but there's a lag. It sounds like it's dragging. I can't hear anything now, Ray.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but
No.
very slowly.
Yeah, I'm can't. Help with by one of the.
Ray, do you want to drop the question in the chat and then I can?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. No problem. Okay, are there any other questions? Can we consider the option of direct deposit for the invoice payment? Oh, good question. I won't be able to answer that, but I will pose that to our accountant. I will definitely ask that and get back to you, just in general, so others may be thinking that as well. So let me ask that question. Rhonda, did you have more to say on that? Okay, perfect. Let's see. Thank you for the rate increase. You are most welcome. What you guys do is amazing, and we are very appreciative. Again, if anyone is interested in applying, you can reach out just directly to me. My email is mchristie@uniteforher.org. Let me know if you're interested in the position. Let me see what else is in the chat. Okay, I think that's it. So let me just ask a general question as I started to say before I presented. Are you interested in doing more as, you know, connecting the providers itself? We are trying to open up more and more. We're trying to just make sure that everybody is on the same page of everything that's going on, but feedback is always key. Like if we don't know of something, or if we're not sure of what you're thinking or what you need from us, then, you know, there's no way of making things better. So we are certainly open to suggestions on if there's anything that you guys would like to do as a provider group itself. And I can open up the floor if anybody wants to come up and speak on that. We had required the roundtable attendance previous pandemic. Can we go back to roundtables? Absolutely. Yeah, that is something that, again, pre-pandemic, that was something that was done, and we've kind of got away from it, but that is something definitely that we can schedule again to have. Those discussions are also always valuable. And so that's something that we can look into scheduling. Thank you, Julie, for that question. Okay, I'm just looking. In-person vendor meetings. Yeah, so we will let you know of the in-person meetings as well. Like I said, right now we're looking to host only probably one a quarter. But anyone is welcome to come to these vendor meetings. I mean, our in-person wellness days, you know, it's going to be just like it was pre-pandemic. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Not as long. The one that we're doing in October is probably only going to be 3 hours. So we're not going to have the individual resource where they were doing demonstrations for all, like we'd have the massages going on at that time. We're going to present the modalities, but we're not going to, for this first one at least, we're not going to have the actual demonstrations where all the participants could, you know, get a quick massage or anything like that. But the intent is to bring people back in person, to have that connectiveness, to have the women connect with one another, to have the providers connect with one another, and just to have that unified forum again. Thank you, Terry. Wonderful. Okay. So at this time, yeah, if there's any other questions, I'm just looking, if I'm missing anything in the chat, my apologies. I'm just trying to go back and forth to make sure I'm addressing everything. Again, Gail, you know, when Gail was taking over the providers before, the one thing that she mentioned to me is that we just want to make sure that we are communicating with each and every one of you. And I don't ever want you to think that what you do is taken lightly on our end at Unite for Her. We recognize what you do. We recognize, you know, how much you help. I received an email this morning about one of our acupuncturists about how it's literally been life-saving for them to be able to go to our services and not to have to use the finances that they have, or, you know, knowing that insurance does not cover it. So what you do is, you know, thank you is not enough for what you do. monetary reward is not enough for what you do, because you're really changing lives. You're really making that quality of life better for our participants. And so I just personally want to say thank you. You know, I'm getting to know more and more of you as I talk to you. And I'm willing to have any discussion with anybody at any time about any questions that you may have. But if there are ways that, you know, many are asking, how can we get more business going? Education. You know, we at Unite for Her, we're just trying to educate more and more about the effectiveness of these modalities and these integrative therapies. And so if there's ever a way that, you know, you think that we can deliver this information better, please let us know. If you're ever available for any of our virtual hangouts to come and present so that you can get that education out there, please let us know. We are willing. We are very willing. Our staff is very open to new suggestions. Times are changing. We know that we have to do things different, and we want it to benefit each and every one of us. So we are in this together. All of us are in this together.